Hello, 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 everyone out there in the blog talkosphere. Welcome to the very first of many editions here of Paradigm Shift Radio. I am one of your hosts tonight, Mike Brazell, psychic medium, modern mystic, and I'm about to bring on Skull Babylon. 1 second here. Hello, Skull, are you with me?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, loud and clear. Welcome. Cutting it right to the last second there. That's how we like to do it on our shows here, you know.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I'll tell you just a story real quick, because like Michael's saying, I literally just sat down to the computer and we just got this figured out, like, as we were about to start the show. But long story short, I was, like, coming home from school because I was working on a project there and took a couple buses. And for some reason, I was, like, at the bus stop, and I was, like, wasn't paying attention. The bus snuck up on me, and then I, like, ran onto it. And then as soon as I get onto it, I'm like, oh, shit, like, my skateboard. I, like, threw out my skateboard. So I jump off the bus, and then I have to, like, wait for the next bus. Long story short, I, like, skateboard all the way home, but when I, like, sat down to, like, open up my computer and, like, get ready for the show, the time on my computer was 11:11, but the even trippier part is that, I know this doesn't make sense yet, but the reason it's 11:11 is because the clock on my own computer is, like, X number of minutes off. So, I mean, the odds of it being 11:11 anyways is just synchronistic. So I thought that was just kind of a crazy way to start off the show. But,
well, this whole thing has been kind of like synchronistic, you know, the whole inception of this show even coming into being. I think, you know, it's just been kind of these wonderful alignments that have been happening, you know, left, right, and center. And now here we all are. Live for our very first show, so we're test driving everything, brand new intro song and everything. So the number to call in tonight, everyone, is 347-326-9263, 347-326-9263. You can also Skype in. We'll be taking your questions, comments, and everything else in the chat room also. So be sure you're posting, be interactive with one another in the chat rooms, talk to one another, call in. So here we are, our very first episode. So let's kick it off and talk about what Paradigm Shift is. That's you, man. Lead it off. Yeah, let's talk about Paradigm Shift in itself. Like what inspired the idea for you?
Okay, so let's just explain the tagline first, right? Because, I mean, that's something that you know at this point, too. So, I mean, the tagline, and this is something that I sort of I settled on around, I don't know, like 2010 or whatever. But basically, when people ask me what it is, I explain it as Paradigm Shift is a youth-initiated community that encourages and supports open-mindedness, healthy living, and the evolution of consciousness. So that's, like, a big picture of what it is. And then, like, within that, basically, yeah, it's like, in a physical sense, it's about encouraging and practicing conversation. Because, I mean, that's really all we're essentially doing, right? We're not trying to be right or wrong. We're just practicing. And we're practicing sharing ideas. And we're often going to be practicing revisiting ideas. Because this whole thing, we want you to be able to have the experience of sharing your own experiences so that you can better communicate with other people in the months and years to unfold from now, when this sort of conversation starts happening to you personally, you the listener, within, like, your everyday life in real person sort of thing. So
right, I think, you know,
Paradigm Shift is. We're
all kind of in this phase of awakening, and, you know, you're seeing it, like, everywhere. Everyone's kind of coming into this new alignment of thought, new alignment of consciousness. You know, some people I know here locally in the Washington, D.C. area, we have so many spiritual communities that are just, like, on the, like, surge now with people into the group, people connecting one another's energies. But, you know, this is a great time to, like, have these types of convergences where we can talk about all these new things that are coming out. And I think this is the important part, too, having that conversation.
I was going to say, can you hear me typing? Cause I
yeah, we can, like, really. It's like the earthquake of typing. That's the one of the beauties of Blog Talk we get.
Halfway through my sentence, I'm just
so we get to hear your interactions with those in the room there. So if you have questions or things you want to call in, folks, 347-326-9263. Also, you can post into the chat room. So this is going to be something we do weekly. We'll be here every Saturday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know, tonight we kind of want to talk a little bit about Paradigm Shift, the movement itself that seems to be blossoming across the globe. and we're going to do topical discussions, throughout the other shows. So if there's topics you want to see us talk about, things that you want to, engage in on the show, call in with your comments, call in with your questions. You can also email some of those topics to me at michael@michaelbrazell.com, MichaelBrazell.com, and we'll add those to the list of things that we will bring on as far as discussion. So paradigm shift seems to be like taking off. It's like this movement that's kind of spreading. So how many other groups are popping up right now?
As it is right now, I know of at least 5, maybe 6-ish, so to speak. And there's obviously Paradigm Shift London, which is like the one that I'm associated with. That's like sort of where this whole idea, like that's kind of the genesis of it, right? Like it started back in 2009 as a club within my college with me and a group of friends. And now we have Paradigm Shift Washington, D.C., which is, as Michael is a part of, which just to make clear for those who are listening. And from there, there's my other buddy, Jordan, who's going to be listening to this later, not tonight. He's in Paradigm Shift Barrie, which is another city town in Ontario. Then there is another buddy I know who's starting a Paradigm Shift New Jersey. And there may be talk of Paradigm Shift Ottawa. I'm not entirely sure about that. But, I mean, the whole idea with this is that, yeah, we want people to start these up wherever they are because it's something that you don't have to start big. It's okay to start small. It's okay if it's just like you and a couple friends like starting a Facebook page, opening up conversation there, and then moving it into the physical space. Because like we said, the emphasis, and this is something that's catching on with other communities as well. I mean, paradigm shifts is just sort of a term that we're using to help keep things in like within, like, you know, when you have different communities calling themselves paradigm shift, it creates a sense of solidarity, right? So across the globe, it's going to help give momentum to the movement. As more paradigm shifts start to arise, it's going to be easier for people to say, like, whoa, like, this is something I can do too, and I already got a couple buddies, so let's, like, start something up here and maybe just have meetings at our local library or bookstores, because that's where it's going to be free and it's not going to cost you money, and the only money you're going to be spending is posters, and other than that, you're just investing your own time. But that's where we're at now. But, I mean, as to where it could go, I would love to see and hear about more paradigm shifts, and that's where we're encouraging our listeners, right? Like, everyone who's listening to this, if you start something, let us know, and you can come on the show and sort of fill us in, sort of give us some sort of recaps as to, like, how your conversation went within, like, the last couple of weeks, or any interesting synchronicities that sort of occurred within your community, because that's the thing, like, it's the synchronicities, like, that's what brings us together, right? It's those moments that are just sort of beyond coincidence and everything. So when you're in the foundation of creating the community, it's going to be really cool for you, because you're going to start, like, running into the people who are attracted to this idea. So
right, I think that's how, you know, for here, how it started with me is, you know, I saw you post on a friend of mine's page, Phoenix Smith, who does a lot of work with the OCG project, and I saw your post and I saw some of your videos and some of your meditations where you're sitting on the fitness ball doing the meditations, and I was kind of inspired to, like, follow some of your videos. And the last one you just posted, which we'll get into the chat room, which you actually talked about paradigm shift and encourage people to start theirs. Here in DC, we have such a variety of groups, and everyone seems to have one small piece of a bigger puzzle. The groups that I am engaged with here, we do more of the channeling, healing, and psychic work. We have a group that's just focused on shamanism. We have one of the only pagan community centers in the country here in DC, so we have a very large pagan and Wiccan community here, and it's what I saw with Paradigm Shift and the power of what we could create here in DC is a convergence of all these different groups, and I've been reaching out to them ever since I watched your video, and we've been working on trying to get a collaboration together. We can all come together with our various pieces, and we've all kind of overlapped, but this has given us that one nice big umbrella that we can all sit underneath without any of that, like you said in the beginning, without coming together to talk and to have those discussions, to work through some of those energies that we're all feeling this year, and I think it's important to have discussions, and it's important to talk about these things. I've seen a lot of people throughout the shows that I've hosted here on Blog Talk so far, people are coming into these new energies, and a lot of people are feeling alone in that process. So even if it's just you and one other person, or just you coming onto the show here to connect in, be sure you click the follow us button and just follow the websites and let us know like what you all are doing out there, and we'll definitely share some of your experiences, stories. We'll share some of our stuff as we also begin to launch out. So those of you who are tuning in tonight, I know there'll probably be some listeners who tune in to my other shows. This isn't a show for readings specifically, so we're not going to answer any baby mama questions tonight. You can call back in on the rest of the days of the week when I do more of those questions, unless Skull wants to answer some of those questions.
I was holding back on my laughter there. I didn't want to.
Yeah, it's funny because we had Phoenix on for he was one of my first guests, and it was so funny because the show kind of started out as an outlet for me to connect into people and do readings and to offer some guidance. And we kind of took this weird, shift into having, I wanted to bring in a multitude of people, not just have it focused on readings. And he was my first guest, and the lady called in that night and was asking about, lighting candles to calm her child's, delinquent father. So, but he did a really great job of talking about indigo children, and we kind of took it in a more topic specific direction. But every now and then we do get some of those callers who may sneak through. So,
hey, and you know what? That's the thing, because with Paradigm Shift, there's nothing that's taboo. There's nothing that's outside of the realms of discussion. So if that's where we go, then that's where we go, right? And it could be from an interesting spiritual approach, right? Maybe there's a lot of questions people would probably have these days, like how do I go about raising a child in this day and age? Not especially if they're trying to raise a child who's going to be more conscious, so to speak. How do we go about doing that? Maybe that would be a topic we could explore later, because when you think about it, those foundations aren't there yet. So, but anyways,
so
we'll save for
another
another day.
A little bit about the consciousness camps, because I see that on your post a lot, and I hear you mention it. Tell us a little bit about how a consciousness camp is structured, what's involved in the process. If people want to go out and engage in that, what would be kind of the format they could follow to start that process?
Yeah, for those interested, Consciousness Camp is basically sort of I guess you could say, a model for the type of format that we have our discussions in. And that format is basically just sitting in a yoga studio and being on the floor and just sort of seeing where the conversation goes. So we have these, as I was sort of saying, the internet aspect of all this conscious evolution stuff, that's important. But the physical interaction, when you're actually in the room with another person and you're sitting within their energy field or morphogenetic field, so to speak, that's a whole different experience, and that's what we need. So the Consciousness Camp is what we call our physical meetings. And for us here in London, Ontario, they happen every single Friday. And as I mentioned, we have ours at a yoga studio, but you can have yours anywhere. You could have them in your friend's backyard, out in the grass. You can have them in a park, right? This is totally open-ended. And then from there, as I sort of mentioned already, the idea is just to practice talking about these things and to practice listening, because practice listening is something that should be very, very emphasized here, because oftentimes, and this is just this has actually come up in our conversations, because where we are in our group, we've been doing these open conversations for a while, probably going back to 2009. And there's the regulars, I guess you could say, those who are commonly showing up. And where we try to avoid, we don't necessarily want it to just be about us patting each other on the back the entire time. So oftentimes, we'll critically analyze each other's ideas rather than just saying, oh yeah, we got it figured out, awesome, go team. That's one way to approach it, but at the same time, you sort of have to be open to the idea that, beliefs are not something that you stand on forever. You can sort of move on. You're on them for a bit, but then you move past them. So we're constantly challenging each other's beliefs. And this is something where you can get into the ego and you can talk about how this is a very difficult thing that a lot of people avoid. They often avoid talking to a friend of theirs who's going to tell them that they might not have it all figured out, right? So a good spiritual friend is actually a person who's going to critically challenge the other person's belief. And this may not be an entirely comfortable thing, but this is sort of what I feel is important. But other than that, the consciousness camps, they are just about having fun. So, I mean, you always want to look at it as play and just sort of explore and experiment and see where the conversation goes. And just the last thing to add on that with ours, we explain it, and you can go to paradigmshiftlondon.com. For anybody who's even listening to this right now, please, I encourage you to go to paradigmshiftlondon.com and just sort of browse the site while we're talking at the very least. But with ours, the tagline that we use to explain it is it's open-minded discussion group and a meditation circle. So meditation circle being the other side of it, because meditation is something that we could talk about that for hours and hours and days, right? But not only that, we can also practice it. And practicing it in a group is always something interesting, and there's like always different ways to approach it, right? So, but that's consciousness for you.
Right. That's good. That's kind of what we wanted to kind of create here. When I kind of was hearing you talk about it on some of the videos, I thought this would be a really great outlet for all of us, especially as the communities emerge and start to emerge on a greater level, to have a place which kind of brings that solidarity into communication. I think the next important step is, we're coming into these places of awakening, and there's just so much information we're all being bombarded with at such a high rate of speed, especially as technology also increases. So having these outlets where we can all kind of come together and have these open source conversations about just anything, I think it's an important meeting space for this to happen. And and having those non-ego discussions where we kind of come together. And I think what I've seen here sometimes is people are afraid to have those interactions with the fear that if we disagree, it's going to be a bad thing. And I find when we disagree, it's okay as long as we're respectful in those spaces. It creates discussion, and even disagreement creates room for expansion. So it's nice to have these meeting places where we can do that. So number to call in, folks, 347-326-9263, 347-326-9263. We also want to hear from you all, so get interactive in the chat. This is the purpose of the show, is we want you all to also post things. If there's topics you want to discuss on the show, be sure you post those in the chat room. Every Saturday night here at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or GMT, or EDT, any one of the other labels. We're trying to figure it all out. It's kind of nice this all has come together. So, Skull, tell us a little bit, because this is one of the things, too, I want to kind of spotlight on, because I think, it's kind of neat to see where we all are in our personal process. What's a day in the life of Skull like?
I don't feel it's necessary to get too personal into any of my habits or anything.
Or your spiritual stuff. I mean, what? Because we see your videos and stuff. Do you do the workouts daily? I mean, is this something that you engage in as far as meditation daily? So what's kind of your your spiritual stuff? I mean, your daily practice.
Yeah, for I guess for those who are listening who may not be totally up to date or familiar with the Paradigm Shift London community, though, if you were checking the website, you probably would have seen by now, I've been putting up videos for quite a while, and these videos go back to 2009-ish, and that's sort of my background in the sense that I went to school for television broadcasting, and then I got involved with this Paradigm Shift stuff because I started it with some buddies, like I said, and part of the idea from the get-go was to document it and to create the video content as an ongoing documentation of this whole evolution process, and this is part of it too. I always had the idea of expanding into radio at some point, and the fact that it's happening is no surprise. It was just a sort of matter of time, and like we sort of said, Michael, things just seem to click, and the fact that it's happened so fast, that's just awesome, because for the people who are listening to the show right now, they're obviously going to be able to get something out of this, and then those ripples are just going to create more waves. So, but to answer your question directly. I just get this is important, I should mention it, but anyway. We
got 2 hours, so don't worry, you have plenty of time.
I'm just gonna no rush here at all if that's the case, but the idea would be to be concise. What are we doing? Breaks? Are we doing music breaks or anything?
Well, no, not really. I mean,
all right.
we're kind of free forming it right now, So we might throw in some music there to grab some water.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say I was.
The one thing we will have is that. Oh yeah, so you just ran in from the ethers. So one thing we will do, because sometimes, once we do get this up and running, and once people, we do really start getting into some of the conversations, one of the things I do find is we can sometimes get, right to the end of time. So when we're at the 5-minute mark, you'll hear this, if I can get it to work. So you know that we're at, because we've a couple times in the past we've gone right over time, and the show will record, and then you get to hear it on archive. But we want to be sure we do any closing things. So if you ever hear that, we're coming down to the last few minutes of the show. So
yeah, nice and subtle there for you.
Nice and subtle. We use that on the other show when people are going long on their readings. So
yeah.
We got to cut the time sometimes. So it's important for us to be sure that we are engaging our own personal spiritual practice. And if you guys want to share some of the stuff that you're doing out there, that I've seen lots of people posting videos and different things about meditation. There's stuff that other groups are doing. Sure you share those. Consciousness effort, so we're all kind of getting together, sharing information, sharing all those connections that we may have into our own personal practice. And I found myself getting, I never expected to do a radio show, and I didn't really have an intention of doing it. And I saw some people doing blog talk, and they offer free, month to get it going and see if you like doing it. And so I figured, why not? And every episode I've had so far has, just kind of solidified itself. Tuesdays I do a show with a friend of mine who it's kind of that night she called in, and now we're doing a show together. And then this kind of happened. Now we're doing this show together. So it's not like the universe is bringing just the right people in at the right moment and kind of create these outlets for people to reach out and to do, things like this, deeper connection. So folks, 347-326-9263. 347-326-9263. So what's going on in Paradigm Shift London? Anything coming up or on the schedule for you guys?
Well, like I said, our regular meetings are always Fridays, so that's pretty much it on a consistent basis. And obviously this whole radio thing is pretty new, so it'd be interesting to see where we go with this. Like, I'm actually pretty excited. Like I said, radio is definitely an effective medium, and even just in the sense that what we're doing here is like a virtual consciousness camp is a simple way of thinking about it once we get into bringing in the listeners into the show and everything, right? Because obviously we don't want it to just be us sitting here talking and stuff.
Exactly. As exciting as that might sound, folks, and as exciting as it is for us just to talk, this is why I keep encouraging you to call in. Otherwise, it will just be us talking.
Yeah. Are we accepting calls right now? Is that...
Call in and get in the queue. It's still kind of so the idea, folks, in the future, we're going to do, we kind of this all kind of came together like last night, actually. So we're still kind of in the process of segmenting how we're going to do our time blocks and stuff. But I figured, why not? It's already Saturday, and it's the first time we can go ahead and get in and do it, so we might as well go ahead and launch the show. So we just kind of feel it all out and kind of get the this setup going. But we'll do news and things for the first few moments, talk about just some things that may be going on in our personal experience, open up topics. So if there's a topic that you all want to talk about tonight, go ahead and start posting those things in the chat room. We'll also just jump right into topic and conversation with you all. So go ahead and call in now, get in the queue. So the sooner you get in the queue, the sooner we can bring you online. And you can kind of figure out all the technological stuff that may be inherent with the glitchiness of blog talk. Yeah.
Well, we should just explain real quick for those unfamiliar who have not made a call into Blog Talk before, the way how you do it. Launch your Skype, have it already launched, and then within the blogtalk.com main web address that you're listening to the show in right now, scroll down to where it says the chat thing, never mind, it's up at the top where it says call to the host. Click on that little Skype logo right next to it, and then if you're on a Mac, it will be choose a application to run with, and then you just sort of do that, and then it tells you you're about to make a call, and like Michael said, that will put you in the queue, and then we'll have you on at some point. So based on just reading the in chat, right now that we have on the Blog Talk website. And again, anyone can join that as well. They just make an account on the blogtalkradio.com real quick, and you can chat in the live chat there. But Justice Hayes appears to be calling in, and Justice is actually, like his real name is Justin. He's actually a buddy of ours within Paradigm Shift London, and he's been around for a while. So I would love to be able to have him on the show at some point if he's able to call in. So. But him or anyone else is equally invited because, we got plenty of time. And, again, if this is just, like, I'll tell you, with the consciousness camps, there's never a shortage of stuff to run out about. But I think at the same time, for anyone listening, and maybe this is something that I'll repeat, I'd just like to personally encourage us to work on the delivery of our language as being concise and coherent. And this may be even just being more aware of the ums and the ahs and the likes and the you-knows and things like that, because for me personally, I have spent some time at a thing called Toastmasters, and this is like, there's groups of these all across the country, or at least in Canada. It's probably in America too, but it's a group of people that sort of, it's where you go to learn to become better at public speaking, and they teach you how to get rid of your ums and your ahs and that and so forth. So I am familiar with that. So Michael, I'm telling you now, if I as I just said, sorry. I was about to say, as I catch you, or even myself, making ums instead of pauses, so to speak, then we might just have to remind ourselves. And this is just to prevent us from falling into lazy habits of poor dialect, because that's something that, unless you consciously correct it, and think of this from a conscious perspective, what is happening when we're talking? We are processing these words, and they're coming through our thought and our mind. But if our mind is clouded, that's when we get the ums and the ahs and those things. So it's actually a challenge to step up your own level of consciousness and question, how aware are you of your own language? How aware are you of the words and the sounds that are coming out of your mouth? So for me, one thing that I would just suggest is, rather than make a pause. So it's better to pause than to If you're ever in a situation where you're just sort of just hold a pause. Just take an extra second. No one's rushing you, and then continue and deliver your thought from there. This is, again, approach this almost meditatively, so to speak. So that's my suggestion. And what do you think about that, Michael?
I think it's good. I think people, when we are more aware of what we are saying and how we are interacting with one another, and when you are having those discussions with those who are in groups that you may be engaging in conversation with, it allows you to connect to them in that highest vibration possible. So when we are connecting into that space of communication and conversation, it allows you to get your message out. When we are using, poor diction or using poor language, it limits us in how we connect with one another. So allowing yourself to go into those divine spaces of deeper communication with yourself allows you to also extend that out to the world around you. So, folks, interact in the chat room. We got a lot of folks coming in. It's great to see so many people coming on air. 347-326-9263. For those of you who are not in the U.S., you can also click in on that Skype button. I have found, though, that at times it can get a little tricky with how the Skype will click into, depending on what browser you're using. Some people will use I know I have multiple browsers open on two computers, just because there's an inherent problem sometimes with Blog Talk and how it connects into Skype through the browser you're using. So just test it out before you come on. We're usually on air about 15 minutes before the show actually airs, so you can also try to come on to the queue sooner than later. That way you can go ahead and test out your browser and everything else. So looks like we have some folks who are coming into the queue. So do you want to go ahead and do a little quick music break and then come back in and start taking calls?
Do a quick sandwich break? Is that what you said?
Yeah, there you go. Sandwich
Let's call
break.
it that from now on.
We'll do sandwich breaks / music breaks.
Yeah.
Let me be sure I still have some music loaded in this player here.
I was about to say, how's the music work? Because maybe we could have a request on music as well. People would just be like, here's a sick track that I want to share,
We can do that. Right now, though, I have some pagan tracks loaded, so we're going to be listening to some Full Height of My Power by Kellyanna, just off of her new CD, actually. One of her old CDs, Elementals. You can find her on bandcamp.com /Kellyanna. I'll post that in the show notes. But we'll go ahead and let Skull grab a sandwich. I'm going to grab some water, and then we're going to come on and have some discussion. I see people already talking about chakras, intuition, and crystals. So it looks like we have our topics already forming themselves out there in the room. So here we go. Kellyanna, full height of my power. It's about 4 minutes and 58 seconds long, Skull.
4 minutes? Is that how long I got?
That's how long you got to make a sandwich. Here we go.
All right, let's go. All right, back in a bit.
Full height of our power. This is the place, and now is the hour. We are a people at the full height of our power. This is the place, and now is the hour. We recognize our sacred word. We have the power. All
right, welcome back, everybody. That was Kellyanna, full height of my power, and hello, Skull, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, what was all that?
What was what? I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that beat?
Yeah, I don't know. This blog talk is very interesting because you'll just come right back on without even knowing like what happened, you know. And there is no fade with the music, so we can't like take it out. It's like you have it and then you don't have it.
Okay.
So,
all right, we'll get used to it and make do with it.
We'll get used to it. It's, you know, I would love to have a giant studio, and I'm going to actually take some photos and put them on the website of the actual how the studio setup is, so you all can see that. You know, I don't have a bunch of little monkeys running around typing and, you know, bringing callers in and stuff. I wish I did, but I don't. So I'm working on 2 computers, and we're hoping. So if you ever hear me use a lot of uhs and ums, it's because I have my brain in 1,000 places at one time to get you all on the air and calling in 347-326-9263. 347-326-9263. I have a couple of callers in the queue. So what do we want to talk about? Do we want to just go into topical stuff? We just want to bring callers on and say, hey? What do you want to do?
Is there anything you feel like we need to talk about before bringing some callers on?
Jeez, I don't know. I just feel like we're just rolling right now. I think it's
appropriate to bring some other people into this.
Actually,
I was trying to think if there was... okay, if there was something I was thinking of, I'm sure I'll be able to bring it up later. So, what
I find happens sometimes with these discussions is the topic will just start to emerge itself as we start to go through. I'm just kind of watching the room, and people are talking about books they're reading, and that's kind of inspiring some topics. Is there anything you're reading right now that's interesting?
To be honest, not at this very moment. I was reading something a couple of weeks ago, but I just sort of been writing in my book most of the time, because normally I'll be reading if I'm like on a bus or something. So recently I've been using that time to be like putting notes and stuff in my notepad, dream journal, diary thing, which I carry with me, and which, I mean, that's a quick tip. Like everyone, I think, should have that on you. Just literally just a notebook and a pen, and something that you can write down the ideas that come to you throughout the day. And not even the ideas, like the observations, and even the synchronicities. You might just sort of hear, or if you might be listening to a song, or you might be listening to a radio, and a certain phrase might jump out at you, and it's like, that was interesting. And then just write down that phrase individually as itself. And then stuff like that is always interesting, because at the very moment you might just be like, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. But then you like go back to it later when it's like on a full page of all this other information. You're just like, it means something different at that point. So
right.
Yeah.
I've been doing the idea journal this year. I've noticed that. Well, I have what's called spiritual ADD, where I can't really focus on any one thing for more than a few minutes. So I find myself constantly being grabbed by spirit, being grabbed by inspiration in a multitude. So I'm always like having to carry that journal with me to be sure that I stay focused on whatever might be right in front of me at any given time. So that journal is something I will go back to, and it really speaks to things I want to post in blogs, spiritual ideas that I want to work through, even with my physical practice with yoga, working out. If there's new concepts and things I want to test out. Like recently I saw your little documentary on spaceflight, and that's something that came into the forefront. So I've now received that, and I'm trying that out. So new things are coming in constantly, and I find if I don't capture them in the moment, I'll see something shiny, and then it'll be gone for the next year. So keeping that journal is an important way to connect into your intuition, to understand how spirit may be talking to you in your dreams. Are you still doing the lucid dreaming stuff? Are you still recording your experiences with that?
I am, in the sense that I do it, but I don't do it perfectly. So the last post that I had was, and people can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SkullBabylon, and you'll notice the last post that I have up was over a week ago, I guess. So I sort of go through phases, or maybe there's like certain times in the week where I'm just not sleeping at my own house if I'm at my girlfriend's or whatever, and then I may not be totally in the habit of going and writing down my dreams or something like that. Because, I mean, it actually does take a level of dedication. And for me, I find it a lot easier to get into the dream habit if I've been at my house, like if I'm sleeping and going to sleep in my own bed and everything like that. So that's where I'm at with my dreams and everything. So, but you know what? Tonight I could definitely just go and put forth the effort again to try and remember my dreams, and then maybe I'll have something to post up tomorrow. So it's been interesting though, doing the video side of it for the dream journal.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, too, that you've documented it. You know, oftentimes I find that even that in itself, when we have these new tools, these multimedia, multi-aspect ways of connecting, YouTube, Facebook, Meetup, this show, we have these outlets that we can actually post some of our personal experiences. So that's why I was asking before about, you know, the workout stuff that you post. It's nice to see how everyone else, because I learn new stuff every time I watch someone else engaging in a practice like that enables me to maybe integrate something new into my own personal experience. So if you're doing stuff out there, if you're reading books that are great, if you're, you know, be sure to post those in the chat room. We want this to be as interactive as possible. And the beautiful thing about it being, you know, through the airwaves here is that there is, you know, we can flow information just as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so, I was just going to say, I think one direction that we could take this with the call-in and the people calling in, you know, if you have a general question, cool, ask that. But at the same time, let's see if almost everybody who calls in can offer some sort of spiritual tip, so to speak. And I don't even want to just use the term spiritual. I kind of just use that as a habit, I guess I could say. But just some sort of tip or trick in general that you sort of, like a little thing that you might do in your life that just sort of like helps you in some way or another, like expand your consciousness or your perceptions or a habit or something that helps you do things more efficiently. So
perfect.
Something that would be very worthwhile to the people listening. And then that's kind of what you're saying, is that each of us already has our own habits. So if we can start expanding these habits and integrating new things that people have experienced and gained results from, then we too can practice those. And I know Justin, if we get him on here, he'll have something to offer because he's really dedicated personally. And I say really dedicated in the sense that he's the most dedicated person I know within the Paradigm Shift London group who is focused on recording his dreams and everything. He like I've seen him do it where he'll have a audio recording of his dream that he recorded during the night and like just into his phone, and then the next day he's re-listening to that audio recording and writing out his dream, and then just sort of studying the notes in it and looking for like the deeper meanings of like what he saw and what within his dream would have been a projection of his own ego, so to speak, and what would have been like something more of an external entity interacting with him. Because one thing that we were talking about yesterday is that within dreams, and again, we can, you know, this is sort of what happens in this, is that we start talking about
just how it works.
Right? Oh no, we're talking about dreams. Yourself, like, but that's one of the best topics to talk about. And for anyone, if you're having a paradigm shift meeting or thinking about planning one, you could post on the poster. I mean, if you're using the term consciousness camp, that's cool, but you could maybe post something like dream discussion circle. Because dreaming is something that everybody experiences, right? So it's something that everybody can at least be interested in on some level, and it's something that everybody can start from because everybody has those experiences. Every single night, we all go to sleep, and we all dream. We may not remember we dream, but we go through the experience of dreaming. So
there's so many different perspectives on dreams too, and there's different perspectives. And you know, I just recently got a book, the Tibetan Book of Dream Yoga, and there's ways that physically go into your dreams. You know, some people like Yogananda viewed, and I like this theory, is that we when people are trying to describe reincarnation, he talks about using the action of falling asleep as an action of dying, and then you wake up in this other dimension, other reality, and then that reality ends and ceases to exist, and you reawaken in this dynamic. So it's another way of looking at dreams, and sleep are very powerful tools for connecting, because it's like the one, aside from breathing, it's the one shared experience that we all have that's kind of in that kind of place of equilibrium. So it's actually a really great topic, because you can go in multiple directions with dreaming and sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, in all the stuff that I just said, there was like, did I tell me if I said this already? Did I say that in dreams, generally 97% of it is a projection of yourself, and then like 3% of that is something external or like some other entity interacting with you, like on the astral planes? Like I don't think I said that yet, right? No, okay, but that was like my point that I was about to emphasize. But Justin, he brought that up yesterday, actually, at the Paradigm Shift Consciousness Camp meeting that we had on yesterday, Friday, and that's just something that all of us have to sort of take into consideration, because we can do that in a dream where like we'll go and we'll see someone and we think it's and it's a projection of our friend or something like that, but depending on what state we're in, we might totally just see them like as our friend, and we're just like totally not aware that we're dreaming, and we're in that sort of regular dream state, right, where you think you're actually awake but you're dreaming, because that's kind of the state that everybody's in, unless they become more conscious of the fact that this whole thing's a dream to begin with, and then that's lucid dreaming, right? That's when you become self-conscious of the dream. But when you do that, you can be like, well, hold on a second, like, this obviously isn't my friend. Like, this is just like a projection of myself, right? But then, and again, this is getting into deeper stuff, and I'll just sort of wait until Justin comes on, but I'm sure he could just talk about the processes of what it takes to identify things within your dream that may not be entirely a projection of yourself, meaning it's almost like a direct aspect of the universe, like higher consciousness, your higher self, call it what you will, communicating back to you in your dreams on like a different type of level. But your dreams are always communicating back to you, because they're always a reflection of yourself, your deeper, thoughts and ideas and everything like that. But there are times where, yes, the universe can get across a message to us within a dream that we otherwise would not be creating within ourselves. It's like communicating back to us. Like, one analogy that I was talking about in terms of dreams is that think of it this way. Every time you go to sleep, think of it in the sense that you're a student attending class. Now, as a student, think, like, are you paying attention? Are you taking notes? Are you studying? And if you're not, then you're probably not going to go as far. You might not, like, graduate to that next level, so to speak, because the universe is a teacher, and we are always the students. So think about dreams that way, and approach it with that sort of discipline, too, because you're not going to get further unless you start doing your homework and you start studying and you start like really dedicating your time, because there are some people who just like spontaneously have lucid dreams and everything, but generally if you want to get to that next level of the dream experience, which is like a huge part of this reality, like that's like the part that as far as we knew was like non-existent. A lot of people, they had to sort of find out about this stuff on their own, because the media like did not tell us anything about this, and this is like sort of the whole suppression of knowledge, this idea that we are actually more than our physical body and we're multidimensional beings, et cetera, et cetera. So focusing, like, and again, Justin will talk about this later, but like the quick tips for getting further with your dreaming experiences is to write down your dreams and to meditate and to like achieve like that higher level of concentration within your meditation, so that when you do become lucid in a dream, you're not just like 5 seconds in, you're just like, whoa, this is awesome, I'm going to fly around, right, and wake up, right? Like that's really sort of, I mean, that's fun, you can do that, but at the same time, that's sort of just superficial in a sense. So to get to like deeper levels of the dream experience, you need to be like, all right, I'm lucid, and like now what? And then you can like think about it this way, and this like might be a crazy thought that people haven't even thought about yet. Meditate within your dreams. If you meditate in your dreams, like guaranteed crazy stuff will happen, like psychedelic stuff. So,
well, it's all a process of going deeper, and I have, personally with my dreams, I have the opposite experience where my dreams tend to be more of a communication with those higher dimensions and higher self energy. I do channeling, and as a psychic medium, some of the tools that I've been given from some of my teachers allow me to have more direct access and more controlled access to how that information flows into not just my waking consciousness, but my dream consciousness as well. And for me, it becomes more of a tactile experience of transdimensional jumping, shifting from one reality into the next in a more controlled way. So it's almost like a constant psychedelic experience in the dream space, which is a lot cheaper than going out and buying a bunch of stuff to create the experience. But it allows me to have direct access to information. I will meditate on a topic or a subject before I go to bed. And as I drift into the dream state, I use a specific technique that I've learned from a few teachers of mine that allow me to have direct access in the waking space. So it's almost like going into a place of meditation and then meditating within that dream space, but allowing that information to flow. And it comes in a more direct way. It's one of the ways that I've built a direct link into my higher self, that soul space. And it's allowed me to evolve my own spiritual practice, but to gain access to information and ideas and concepts, that I might not have in any other way. So, we each have our different ways of going into those different spaces, but allow yourself to explore it. Like Skull said, if you're having experiences and you're not doing anything with those experiences, if you're not cataloging, you're not capturing them in some way and allowing yourself to kind of sit with it, even if you're using, the idea of dream interpretation, if you're not capturing the dreams, the interpretation doesn't really mean as much. When you have to go back in time and try to figure out what the dream was, capture it in the moment. So have that dream journal next to your book or that audio recorder. We have all this wonderful technology now, so use your cell phones or text yourself the ideas and concepts that may be showing up in that dreams. But even daydreams are another way to connect into that place of imagination and, micro-dreaming, going into spatial time within our waking day. So, there's a whole variety of things. And, I'm going to go ahead and bring on some callers to see what their perspectives are.
We know who's bringing on?
Yeah, I have a few folks that are already in the queue.
Okay.
One of the persons I'm bringing on right now is actually one of the folks who is here in D.C., so
cool.
Bring him on. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
Excellent.
So, give us that tip that's going to shift us into higher planes of consciousness.
I'll do that etherically, so you'll just feel it.
I felt it. We're there.
Awesome. So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of people who are interested in leading healthier lives, and there are a lot of people who are interested in improving their spirituality and spiritual experiences. And what I'm gathering is that in the paradigm shift community, there's an interest in synthesizing that. So, what would you tell people who are maybe fitness conscious or spiritually aware? What do you tell them? What's the purpose of synthesizing that in order to shift your consciousness?
So you're basically referring to the idea of like healthy body, healthy mind, healthy spirit.
Absolutely.
What you're saying? Right. Well, I think that is key, right? But I'm always interested because I've met like some people. Who's to say that a person who isn't? Well, actually, I don't know. I don't want to just like label people, but who's to say like a person who is morbidly obese can't lucid dream, right? They could still do that. So, in sense of achieving higher states through meditation and dreaming experiences, you may not necessarily need to be a top-tier athlete to get to those states, because like that's totally like the mind almost like operates in a sort of individual like state opposed to the body, so to speak. But with people who are exercising on a regular daily basis, it's just stating the obvious, right? Like you're going to be able to just make healthier conscious decisions that are going to make you feel better and are going to give you more energy. And I think, Michael, you talk about this a lot. Your diet has a lot to do with your energy as well as your daily practice of yoga and everything, right? So
right. Connecting into the physical body is a very important thing. If we look at, we use the temple analogy, the body is the temple for the energy as it moves through us. Having things where we're misaligned, whether it be nutritionally, energetically, or physically, inhibits us in how we can move through this one tactile experience, but it also limits us in how we connect into those spaces. What I find is, and of course, your body type has no direct impact on how you engage your spiritual process, but it does, on some levels, affect how we engage the process of deepening that practice. But you're never too far away from starting the process, whether it be doing something like yoga, basic stretching. I find starting with breathing being the most important thing. One of the things that I'm noticing a lot more within myself and in the community here, as you know, Sean, is the way people connect to food and how it relates into their spiritual practice. We sometimes have a tendency to reach out to things like sugar, caffeine, things that will inhibit how we go a little bit deeper. Those things kind of disrupt our energy fields and our energy systems, and that in itself can be a whole show talking about
diet.
how diet affects us on a
diet
spiritual
alone. Yeah.
Sugar, sugar disrupts everything from how we connect into the energy system to how well, insulin levels spike. It brings you down energetically, physically energetically it brings you down, but also it brings those other aspects down. Posture is another thing that will inhibit how we connect to aligning ourselves to a higher vibration. Balance in the physical body, I find with yoga, is I can see with my students when they're not balanced in yoga, where they're also not balanced within their personal life experiences. The body will talk to you. You just have to really learn to tune in and listen, and that's part of that breathing, slowing down, allowing the synthesis of mind, body, and spirit. So it's one of those things you hear people throw around a lot, especially in the New Age community. Oh, mind, body, spirit alignment. It's a whole other thing when you actually start that alignment. I find people can sometimes do the mind-spirit part, but when it comes into bringing the spirit into the physical body and allowing ourselves to fully engage that process, there's a little bit more work there. It takes work to actually get up and be part of that, getting the body ready to accept that stuff,
And yet you bring up some really interesting points with regard to the relevance of being healthy. It is definitely true that a person can have a powerful spiritual experience and be physically unhealthy. What I'm personally learning is that whether you're healthy or unhealthy or your body shape, your body type, they're all sort of different paths on that spiritual journey. A lot of people, for example, who are in natural healing or natural health have a past of being sick. They've been sick or seriously injured at one point, recovered, and then became passionate about giving that gift to others. Mm-hmm. So it's entirely possible, from my perspective, that going through the discomfort and pain of being unhealthy can sort of catapult you into a different sort of consciousness of becoming healthier and showing others how to get there.
And I like skull. I mean, you can what I'm personally doing is I'm going to start posting some videos on my own personal practice and how I engage into the physical body. I'm actually writing a book. The book that I'm working on now is actually using yoga as a form of alchemical practice to affect and change the energy around us, to really get into those places of manifestation, aligning the chakras into a place of using the physical body to do that, not just using the mental and spiritual body. But even Skull has videos on his site that show, and I think and that's an important part, and that's one of the things that kind of drew me to watching a lot of his videos, and even to Paradigm Shift, was that whole healthy living and consciousness, because when you see someone who's actually engaging not just the mental, meditation, spiritual aspects, but actually engaging the physical body aspects, it shows a greater alignment. And we're not going to go out and do a bunch of yoga classes or join a gym or, lift 1,000 pounds, but be conscious. I think, Skull, you talk about like using a skateboard as a method of moving from one place to the other. Walking, getting out and involving your physical body within your own process gets you more aligned. No matter what level you're doing it at, you should start doing it at some level.
Yeah, like even at the very beginning of the Mystic Ninja Chronicles, which is the video series that Mike was referring to, where I sort of talk about some of my workout routines and everything. Again, that's on my YouTube channel and everything. But the very first scene of that, I just say, go for a walk outside. And this is something that oftentimes people who are sort of stuck in the 9 to 5 work routine, they don't usually even do that sometimes, unless unless for some other extreme reason. But they'll go to work, they drive their car to work, they're at work, they might have lunch, and that's sort of what I'm referring to, where they might like walk to a fast food place down the street, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of it, right? But then they're done work, and then they just like go at home and watch TV, and then that's it. And like that's they're not spending time outside, and they're not getting that just extra sensation of being alive. And that's something that, I mean, this isn't just hippie new age jargon, but being connected with nature is such a huge part to being able to just be happy and be able to like embrace the things that life has to come at you. Because if you're disconnected from that, then you're just going to be like putting up blockages that are going to prevent energy from coming through. I think would be just one thing. And what I was going to say, though, a quick tip for anybody who wants to start approaching this whole healthy idea stuff, the healthy living, is pay attention to your diet. Because diet is just like the fastest way that you can change how you're going to be like feeling. Because like we were saying, if you're eating sugar, if you're drinking pop, like stop drinking pop. Like pop is acid. I mean, think about it. You're like when you put it in your mouth, it like fizzes and stuff like that. Like yeah, that's because it's like acid and it's like instantly burning away your teeth and stuff. So just think about what it's doing inside you. And then we can even talk the idea about how diet is so directly affected to the idea of our third eye being opened up, right? Because our body is so sensitive to the chemicals that are in it that even when there's just like a little bit of stuff like out of whack, it's going to sort of like affect the body on a micro and macro scale. But I mean, I'm not a nutrition expert, but you don't have to be a nutrition expert to understand like the simple idea of not eating fast food and stuff, because that stuff is junk. And one thing that you can even think about, and this is sort of like the next level of conscious healthy eating, is even the idea of thinking about where your food's coming from, because this is sort of, again, the idea that we're energy and stuff, right? And energy sort of stays with objects. So if the animal that you're eating, for example, say it was cattle, if it was like mistreated and it lived its life in fear, then that fear is actually going to be like within the meat that's going to be like processed and then like put onto like your burger down the road. So that's what I'm saying, is that ideally we want to be able to be cautious of how we're treating our food before it's even in the form of food. And this goes back to like what the natives would talk about just having like respect for the animals and always being like grateful when something dies for you to live on. Because just like that, just stating the obvious, in order for something to move on, something else like has to die. Something has to create the soil underneath it for the new plants to grow up from, so to speak. So
yeah, it's an important thing to just be aware of what you're putting into your body, where it came from, and then how you're relating into it. And just another tip that I want to give everyone is just breathe. A lot of people I see within my practice and with yoga, I call it waking apnea. Life right now is moving a lot faster than it ever has, and I see a lot of people doing a lot of deep inhales and no exhales. So they're doing the, where life is kind of catching them off guard. And if you're not exhaling, you're not creating space. And, one of the things I've really been working on with some of my clients is living your life as an action of exhalation. When you exhale, you're creating space for the next breath, but you're also creating space to invite some of that more positive stuff in. If you look at people who are engaged, like especially anger is a very strong emotion, people do a really deep inhale the minute that anger kind of grabs their body, and it's that breath that comes in that kind of fuels us in that place of anger. So allowing ourselves just to breathe is really just a great place to start, because it's one of the most it's one of those basic spiritual practices that we sometimes forget. We look at doing meditation, but everything starts with the breath. Everything starts with the breath. Our life starts with the breath, and going into that place is kind of like that thing with dreaming. It's the one common shared spiritual practice that we all have, and allowing ourselves to tune into the breath first allows us to engage the physical practice on one level. It's a thing that truly unites mind, body, and spirit, because when you're breathing, you are in an action of constant connection to those multiple aspects of self. So, that's my tip. Breathe. So,
yeah,
if you're not breathing, everybody right now take a nice deep breath in. Now let it go. There you go. We all meditated together.
Well, I wouldn't be so quick to call that meditation just yet, but I think, where do we want to do? Do we still have, is it Sean? Do we still have Sean on the line?
Yeah, Sean, you there?
I'm still here.
Still there. So now we'll turn it on you. How are you engaging? Is there anything that you're doing? Because I know you here in DC, you're kind of in the fitness mode. So what are you doing? How are you seeing that alignment happen within yourself?
Integrating fitness and spirituality has been something that fell into place over time for me.
Right.
I mentioned earlier about there's a lot of people that begin the fitness nutrition mindset because they got either near fatally ill or they're just very sick, and I was in the same boat. I had a near fatal illness about a decade ago, and the recovery from that brought me to this fitness path. And so now at this point, 10 years later, my routines are part of my spirituality. One of the key components is a set of exercises called the 5 Tibetans, and they're fairly well known now. It's sort of a subset of yoga. Nightly stretching and lifting. I do kettlebell lifting. I sort of try and stay as fit and strong and youthful as possible, and I view that as part of my spiritual journey. Earlier I mentioned that there are people that I think part of the physical pain of being unhealthy is part of their spiritual journey of getting to a better place. They have to experience that. I know I did. Before I got sick, I ate horribly. Now it was pizza and soda and hamburgers all the time. But when you go through that, I think anybody, people who deal with weight problems, whether they're too skinny or too fat, people who deal with feeling, incapable of handling life physically, that experience is what brings you to that. And I think similarly, the experience of feeling spiritually unfulfilled brings you to a spiritual path as well.
Exactly. Well, awesome. And I know you and I are going to be doing some stuff here in the D.C. area. Sean's one of the folks that I asked to come on to kind of really help gear up the Paradigm Shift D.C. movement. And that's one of the things that I know you and I will be doing a bit of is we have so many wonderful ways to connect outside here. So getting people involved in some of the spiritual, physical aspects, I think, will be a really neat addition to what we'll bring to Paradigm Shift D.C.
Absolutely.
All right, Sean. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
All right, keep listening, keep tuning in, folks. 347-326-9263, 347-326-9263. For those of you out there who are in the chat, if you're calling in the blog talk, what I've also noticed is that if you're not hearing audio, you have to refresh your browser. It's something that's come up on a few other shows. I'm trying to type at the same time. Refresh your browser. Just get it refreshed. Sometimes the audio will kick back in. And you can also call into the show if you're in the U.S., 347-326-9263. You don't have to come on, but you can still listen to the show via telephone. So if you can't hear it on your computer for whatever reason, call in and you can actually hear it on the show. We won't just chime you into the conversation without, you push a button and it brings you into the conversation. So I think we have Justin on next. Here we go. 1 second here. Hello, Justin. Are you with us? Hello? Hello? All right. So Justin in the chat room, go ahead and call back in on Skype, and we tried bringing you on. No, we didn't hear you on the Skype, so go ahead and call us back in. So already we've had some pretty interesting conversation topics, and that's the thing I like about these things. We go in a multitude of directions. Mm-hmm. So let's see here. Yeah, so go ahead and call back in, Justin. We're waiting for you. He's the only other person we had in the queue. So I do have one other person, so we'll go ahead and take this next call while we're waiting for Justin to come back on.
Great.
Let's see here. Hello, Skype caller. Your first name and where you're calling from?
Hey, it's Nathaniel.
Hey, Nathaniel. Nathaniel from California. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just listening to the show.
Excellent. So how are you involved? How are you feeling the shift happening around you, Nathaniel?
Well, I'm, kind of in a financial bind, but it's actually kind of getting me out to do my spiritual work in my music and through astrology and stuff. Maybe in a new generation of to write like songs and stuff.
So you're like a musician, so that's how you're connecting into this. Is that a meditation practice that you use, or you do?
I love to do like yoga, Kundalini music too, and do the Sanskrit singing.
Oh, nice. So what tip would you have?
I kind of want to orientate, have music around that, and even there's a such in some of the Sanskrit singing. You could still make the same sounds and other things, and it still would have the same vibration, but you could add some of those accents and other music would be great.
Nice. Skull, have you used music or sound therapy in any of the stuff that you've done?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of that Stephen Heidelberg. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. Jonathan
Goldman's another one who does a lot of the toning, chanting, using the sacred sounds to connect into the chakras vibrationally.
Mm-hmm.
I think sound is one of the interesting things because for people who have never experimented with it, so to speak, before, the first thing that they'll notice is that there's a visceral experience to it. More so, at least I'm thinking in terms of Tibetan singing bowls. If you're ever in the room with a Tibetan singing bowl and you have that thing going off, you can feel it. If you're concentrating enough, you can tell. You can feel your third eye vibrating, or other parts of your body, other parts of your chakra. Because different singing bowls, different sizes are going to correlate with different tones and the different chakra energy vortexes. So
they use gongs as well, and they even have gongs as big as 80 inches. And when you hit an 80-inch gong, that really vibrates every organ in your body.
Well, did they have that up on monasteries? Is that, am I just imagining? But I swear I've seen something where I've, seen that up on monasteries or something.
Yeah.
They do have it.
Yeah.
That's what they have, 80-inch, I think, is about the biggest one, and those are so expensive, they're like $25,000.
Yeah, I've seen too. I went to New Orleans once, and there was this group that was called Vibrational Massage, and they sit you down in this chair, and around you there's gongs and singing bowls and bells, and they start chiming everything, and it was this vibrational experience. And another thing, coming back to sound, that I just recently watched an interview with David Icke, and one of the neat things he talked about was shows like this, where we're putting this information out, and vibrationally it's like going out into the ethers. And even people who aren't listening to the show are tuning in to some of the information that we're talking about on the show. So I just thought that was a neat aspect to think about, that when we're talking about the shift, when we're talking about these, spiritual and super spiritual concepts, that people who may not even be listening are going to be receiving some of that vibration of the things that we're discussing, And you can also download the shows in the archives. So these things become these archived, vibrational sound experiences. When you actually get to hear and interact with one another, I think there's a power. There's a power in reading blogs. There's a power in reading books, but having these tactile exchanges with people vibrationally through sound, it's a powerful experience of sharing. So
I was just about to say, for anyone who's listening right now and has been enjoying the program so far, just put a quick link up on your Facebook wall or wherever you might be able to share it with your friends, and just tell them to tune in, because we still have, I believe, an hour or
45 minutes.
45 minutes left in the show, so plenty of time to get some people to still join in, because even if they're halfway through the show, it doesn't mean that they need to be brought up to speed necessarily, because with the way we're going, topics can come about so quickly that they'll be able to jump right in, and they'll be taking in a whole bunch of new information that will, I'm just thinking ahead for when we have Justin coming on the show, because I believe he has tried calling in again, so I think
I got him in the queue right now.
Very soon. So.
Yeah, we have him in the queue now.
So tell your friends to listen to the show real quick, because they may want to get in on this stuff. It's probably going to be pretty interesting.
And I'm going to give a shout out to Nathaniel here because he's one of my constant followers. He is one of the folks who is always tuning into the show. So Nathaniel, I absolutely appreciate your support and your tuning in. You're calling in with some really awesome perspectives, and you're someone who actually is out there doing the work. So much love and much thanks to you.
Hey, boy, I like your vibes too, bro.
All right, thanks Nathaniel.
Here you are. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, folks, number to call in tonight, 347-326-9263. As Skull said, be sure you're sharing this show. Get it out there to the masses. Post it on your Tumblr, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Pinterest, your YouTube, your whatever you are connected into. You should post the show to that and get people involved in this conversation, because as we're opening up, we're going to really want to have as much interaction as possible. And also click the follow button on the actual show page. So if you go to Blog Talk Radio /Michael Brazell, there should be a follow button there. And there should be one on the show page also. So you can click that follow button, follow the show, and you will get updates as they occur and as we post new shows, and you can go into the archives and listen to old shows once there are old shows. But there are other shows that I do throughout the week, and I'll introduce those before we sign off tonight. But now we're going to try to bring on Justin again. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello, Justin. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Hey, dude.
I can hear.
Oh, that's nice.
Welcome to the show.
This is my first time on cyberspace, so please treat me nicely, people.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome to cyberspace.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, this is neat. Like it's an interesting. I was thinking about this yesterday because it's an interesting just experiment of where your mind is going. Justin, you'll know this in a second as you start talking, because right now, like, I'm sitting here and I'm just like staring blankly into nothing in front of me as I lean into my laptop and talk. So my concentration is more in my head and less around the physical distractions that are in front of me. But at that same time, that allows me to be more conscious of the ideas that I'm processing if I'm concentrating more on what I'm verbally saying, opposed to being distracted by, whereas in a regular conversation, you might be sort of walking down the street and having to like not run into poles or something like that, for example. So
yeah, it's also probably pretty good to practice posture and breathing, as
that's
you guys
right,
were saying previously. But
sitting here.
you kept talking about how I should say my stuff about dreams, because I've been practicing it for a while. But first off, is I don't want to break the tradition here. Everyone who's come on has had a tip, so I would say I have a threefold tip. If you try this with dedication, it will change your life, in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe it won't. If you write down your dreams, if you meditate on a daily basis, and if you practice being mindful during the daytime, then it will profoundly change how you experience things, in my opinion. So that'd be the tip I would have.
Nice. So tell us about your dream experiences. I know Skull has kind of shared a little bit about your process of getting into that recording and then looking at how they, open up into, I guess, this physical dimension. So what's your process? Do you write them down and you sit with it? Do you meditate with the stuff that you're getting? Or what's your process for recording and then going into the dream?
As far as writing down dreams, my practice involves basically, wow, this is so much harder without in front of me. Okay. Really interesting. Anyways, I basically write down my dreams, and if it's the middle of the night when I wake up, because I do get a lot of dreams that I wake up in the middle of the night, and I record them into my phone, or I have a pen that lights up, which is good too. But that's one of the practices. Dream memory can be practiced not just by writing down dreams. For people that haven't dreamed or don't have dreams too often, it's really hard to start out that practice. So a tip that I would give would be to say, try something like retrospective exercises. Retrospective exercises is basically when you, at the end of the day, you sit down, or as a preamble to your meditation, if you do meditate at the end of the day, and just try to remember all of the events that happened throughout your day, all the lessons that you learned, all the things you feel like you may have done wrong, or just like all the streets you walked around, like whatever's simple, whatever you remember is usually has a lot of meaning to it. And that would help out. Like if you do that, you practice retrospection, you'll notice it grows with time. You'll be able to remember more content, more all the faces you met, and eventually you get to the point where when you wake up in the morning, you can do a retrospective meditation as well, and you can go back and remember all of your dreams, the people you're interacting with, or the situations you're in. It's the same way.
Nice. So do you, is there, so you talked about using some of the retrospective stuff. So some folks are talking in the room now about using like masks in dreaming, lucid dreaming. Do you engage in lucid dreaming also, or do you just dream and record, or do you actively go into that space of trying to engage the lucid aspect of dreaming?
Yes. I've been practicing it a while. I don't just necessarily do it. Like the traditional way of lucid dreaming is to realize that you're already in a dream, and that's a really simple and good thing to do if you're practicing a lot of retrospection. Easy way to do it is just by, if you look at all the things that are in your recorded dreams, you'll find common elements that appear over and over and over again. You'll probably dream about it once a week, and then using that as a trigger to realize you're in a dream. Definitely.
Nice. So what's some of your current dream experiences? What's one of the most interesting ones you've had? Have you seen any like precognitive stuff, or do you have we talked a little bit about some of the astral connections to some of those higher beings or higher self type stuff? What's the most interesting thing you've encountered?
Most of them that I have, I don't like to talk too much about because of how personally they are, but there are a few that I could probably mention. I've been starting to have some dreams that are somewhat precognitive in really strange synchronistic ways, or also experiences where when I am lucid, I have the ability to, well, everyone has this ability, it doesn't, nothing unique about it, but to call upon or communicate with specific parts of your own higher self. Like, it sounds cheesy, but once you start to practice it, if you actually genuinely pray when you're in a lucid dream, there will be people or entities or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know how to describe it. There will be scenarios where you are starting to experience things that are way beyond what a usual dream would entail. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, is when you're lucid, don't try to fly, don't try to do anything. Just sit down. Sit down, close your eyes, and say, take me where I need to be. And you will be brought to exactly where you need to be, and you will learn the lesson that you have to learn. And that's the way that I experience dreams. That's the tool that I use it for. I don't try to fly or live out my desires. I think that all that's kind of counterproductive towards being a spiritual individual. But that's kind of what I do in my dreams. Like as well, if you start to practice a lot of meditation, I can assure you that you'll start to realize that they're both linked. Lucid dreaming and meditation. Once you start to interact with that a lot more, you'll get to the point where you can do things like, I like doing mantras. Like, let's say you're holding a mantra. Like, this sounds like an intense practice, but if you try this, I guarantee you will have some strange results if you practice it for like 2 weeks. What technique that I use is try a mantra like something like O. The O mantra is usually associated with the heart. So every exhale of your deep breath is an O mantra. O. And you do that for, I don't know, let's say do it for 45 minutes to an hour. And after you've done that, you stop. you'll notice and you'll feel that vibration all over your body. Like you'll just feel completely different, so much more calm and focused. So then the next part of the practice is to lay down in your bed and then to continue doing the mantra. But now, over the next span of like 5 minutes, get silencer and silencer and silencer until you're doing that mantra just in your mind. And then if you've done the practice properly, you've been practicing it consistently, then you'll start to basically enter into a lucid dream. That's the best way I could describe it.
Right. Have you used things like the binaural music or the hemisync or even props to engage? Like someone mentioned in the room using like the Alex Gray masks and things to cause like a sensory deprivation. Have you used any of those yourself, or has it not been something you've ventured into? Yeah. Personally,
I'm kind of morally against them. I think that they're like, it works in a way, but it's like a crutch.
Right.
At first, when you don't know how to walk, you're going to need a crutch. But if you don't learn how to let go of the crutch at the right time, then it will be there with you forever, and you won't be able to do things without it. So I try to use only tools of the mind. Or vibration, internal, like a mantra, or just like, being able to focus the mind and learn how it works. It definitely works for me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's so many different ways to connect in, and there's so many different techniques to use to go into dream space. Do you find, since you do a lot of work, and it sounds like you've been doing this work for a while, engaging in the lucid aspect, do you find some of that lucidity in like even your daydreams? Do you find yourself allowing yourself to have those daydream moments of the day, and are they semi-lucid or more controlled?
Anytime that I decide to stop, I like to. One thing that I found really helps me achieve lucid dreaming and the experiencing of altered states without any substance is usually to always be doing one thing at a time. If you're walking, walk. Make every single step a conscious action. If you're talking to someone, talk. But don't try to do something like chew gum and walk at the same time. Or like, that's why when people, they say things like binaural or hemisync, really good. But if you're using hemisync, that's all you have to be doing. That if you focus on hemisync perfectly, then it'll happen. So it's really just learning how to focus on one single thing at a time. So let's say if I feel like my mind is starting to wander or enter into a daydream, I would personally associate that as a negative thing, because if my mind is wandering, it means I'm not doing, or I'm trying to multitask or something, and it hinders me. But as far as sitting down and taking time to like reconnect with your breath or your heartbeat, in order to focus, definitely has good effects.
Right, it's like the heartbeat's the internal binaural beat, when you can connect into that space. And I find the use of tools, even doing psychic work, when I teach my psychic development classes, I find a lot of people, they really want to use pendulums, they really want to use tarot cards, and those are all just tools to access a door that's already open. And a lot of us, we can engage our dreams, and it's allowing ourselves to not necessarily rely on the tools, and some people need the tools to build that confidence that they can enter that space. But I definitely agree that we have to have that release from allowing the tools to become a crutch. And I know so many psychics who say they can't do a reading without using their tarot cards. It's about letting go of those tools and allowing ourselves to enter and access those spaces of higher consciousness, without the crutches. And I think, it's an important thing. So how long have you been engaging in learning to and engaging in the process of dream work and lucid dreaming?
Yeah, definitely, I would agree. I find that personally, for me, having like a goal is always good, because a lot of people, they worry so much about getting to that lucid dream state that they get there and they don't know what to do, and then they're just stuck in the same things that everyone tries to do, like play with gravity or something that's really absolutely trivial when it comes down to it, for the development of our own self. one of the things I try to do is always go into any meditation or any dream experience with a specific goal, and that goal is always static and the same thing, to access information beyond yourself.
Right.
And once you start to do that, that's when you start to really learn a lot of things. Like, maybe it's not beyond yourself, maybe it's coming from your subconscious, but either way, you're interacting with something that most humans don't have the ability to interact with. And I think that's like where creative abilities stem from originally.
Yeah, I think I heard Ram Dass say recently in one of his talks, one of his older talks, that even when he was using, psilocybin to do some of the, astral aspect and astral projecting, that one of the things he learned from the Nkrumah Baba was that don't get caught in the illusion. When you step out of that space, you get caught in how nice the colors look and how funny the shapes are now, then you're not using it to access and to go a little bit deeper and to do some of that deeper work that you could be doing in that space. And yeah, that stuff is there, and yeah, that stuff is pretty cool. But at the same time, you have to allow yourself to go beyond that illusion as well, to go a little deeper into that process. And I find dreams to be kind of that thing also, where we're tapping and going beyond the illusion. And yeah, everything else beyond that space, there's a theory that everything else is an illusion also, but we strip through the layers like going through an onion, until we get to a little bit deeper place.
Yeah, I'm really interested what you said about your dream yoga book that you're talking about. I actually have a book too that's called Dream Yoga, and like you were talking about death. I think, in my opinion, if one wants to explore the subject like death, which is so hard to no one knows what's going to happen, right? But I mean, at the very least, dreaming is very similar. You're outside of your body, at least. Maybe it'll be different when you die. Who knows? But I think that's definitely an interesting thing that you're going into. Maybe you could talk a bit more about it. I'm interested.
Yeah, what I've noticed even with dream work, because people have a hard time understanding the concept of reincarnation, and Yogananda in one of his books, I think it was the Yoga of Christ, he talks about one of the ways he explains reincarnation is that when we go to sleep, we physically detach from this world. It's an action of dying. We're surrendering into the unknown. And when we do that, we wake up in these sometimes fantastic places. And we engage in this whole other life. And some of us, when we do the shift, I have these experiences where I completely am aware, but it's like I'm living a whole other life. It's like I actually have woken up in a whole new experience. So one of my teachers calls that, a transdimensional shift, where you're actually living out a dimensional experience in a different space. And then you engage that process, and that part of you closes down, and you reawaken back into this experience. So it's a process of constant reincarnation. So it's an easy way to kind of understand part of that process of constantly shifting from one place into the next. Because reincarnation itself is a whole other topic we could spend hours talking about. But on a very simplistic level, allows us to engage that. And I find using yoga for myself, if I do specific posturings before I go to bed, I can access different chakric energy to allow myself to go a little bit deeper into the dream state if I set an intention or an affirmation. And I think sometimes, too, and it sounds simplistic to say, but if our affirmation is, I can't lucid dream, then, of course, sometimes our energy system and our mental process will say, yeah, of course not, because that's your affirmation. So I think sometimes having the desire to do it and just not limiting ourselves in the experience and, trying different books and engaging the process and starting it. Because I see a lot of people in the chat, everyone really wants to do some lucid dreaming now. So, we're probably going to have a lot of people entering the astral realms tonight, thanks to this show.
Well, I mean, the real question is, how do you know you're not dreaming right now?
Exactly.
Check.
Exactly.
Because if you can't tell you're dreaming right now or not, then how are you going to tell in 3 hours when you are? So practice during your day actually being aware that if you're dreaming or not. Like, have some sort of practice that you do. Like you were describing, connecting with your breath. That's a good one, because your breath is always there. It's always a choice. Every breath is a choice to be conscious or unconscious. And obviously, the more conscious you are, the more chance you'll be in a lucid dream.
Right. And I think it's important. It's important to engage. Like, that's one of the things that I was, one of the things I've been kind of exploring in my own personal practice. I like to ask myself those questions is, can we apply lucid dreaming ideas and concepts to this waking reality? Because in essence, this is the dream. And it's the Edgar Allan Poe quote, life is nothing more than a dream within a dream. Everything in some level is an illusion. Especially if you prescribe to anything within the Course in Miracles, everything that we perceive is an illusion of something we're projecting. And big thing, law of attraction, all these new divine and universal concepts are constantly in the new age media place. But when we are tapping in, we are manifesting, we are going to those places of attraction on some level that is using some of those lucid aspects in this tangible reality.
Yeah, actually, I really like that idea you expressed, that life is a dream. I'm actually a part of a community of people who are really avid dream explorers. Like, I'm only a novice. I've only been doing this for maybe a year, but some of them have been doing it for decades. And some of them have come to their own personal conclusions where they sometimes express that it seems that this is a dream too. It's just more solid. And
right.
And then it's like they know that this dream will end too when they die.
Right. So
they're like, but their whole philosophy is so interesting. But I think that it's a really interesting concept to explore. This people can easily say life is a dream, but to actually come to that personal affirmation or realization, I think, requires such great practice. And like there's a lot of ideas. The more you practice dream explorations, the more your dream world starts to leak on to your real life, and I can say that that's somewhat similar to what I've been experiencing recently. But it's so hard to tell because there's so many, like, each dream kind of has a reflection from your previous day and a reflection towards your future day. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep you on. Justin, but I'm going to bring on Ryan also. We've never had multiple colors on at one time. We're going to give this a go because we're trying new things here on Paradigm Shift Radio.
Yeah, this is going really good, guys. Like, I haven't had to say much in the last while, but I've been enjoying the conversation you guys have been sharing. So.
Yeah, and the chat room is going and flowing. 347-326-9263 to come in on the show. Be sure you guys also post out there in the chat room, and I know I can hear Skull typing away. So we're watching the chat. We're getting people in. So I'm going to bring Ryan on now. Hello, Ryan. Are you there?
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How are you doing?
Awesome. Pretty good. I was just about to go to bed, and then I saw on Facebook, Paradigm Shift Radio. I'm like, cool, I'm going to check this out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for skipping some sleep time to come on and join us for this interesting discussion doing dreams tonight. We didn't really have a topic, and then all of a sudden this topic kind of unfolded, and I find that's kind of how these synchronistic events happen. So I saw you were talking about you have stuff to say on this topic. So speak away, my friend.
Yeah, it's actually just right up my alley. I actually write the column Astral 101 on Spirit Science on the website there.
Hey, Ryan. I was about to say we should ask where this Ryan is calling from, because if it's from Toronto...
Oh, right. I'm from Toronto. Toronto, Ontario.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So before I heard the other caller coming in saying something about when you go to sleep, you go into the astral. And I think I've actually talked to Brendan about this before. It's just this little problem I have that people think that the astral realm is the same as the lucid dreaming realm. And essentially, everything is one, but I want to sort of explain that there's an internal realm and an external realm. The internal realm of dreaming is where all the subconscious figures all reflect you in entirety. And you learn things specific to your own life, to your own desires and passions, and your own inner self. But when you're astral projecting, you leave your body and you explore things that you've never, that your consciousness has never reached before.
Okay, I understand the concept you're expressing. Yeah, I would agree. There are definitely different levels of vibration and frequency. I just express it usually. They're all the astral. I mean, because they're all outside of this physical realm, but I am aware that there are different depths at which they come to, and it just seems like it's more convenient to just say the astral or the dream world, because if someone hasn't experienced what you're describing, then it's really hard for them to completely grasp such a concept, because it's easy to say something like that once one has experienced it. But when one hasn't experienced it, then it just seems just like a theory, right?
That's true. Right, okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but everything is essentially all one, and it's all the same experience. It's just we're experiencing different frequencies, different realities, different perspectives of the same.
And I think we get caught up in the language too. We talk about, especially when it comes to doing this work, you hear people, they're very fluid with how they use words. It's like, we'll talk about out-of-body experience and astral projection and dream walking, spirit walking. There's, lots of labels that everyone will put on, something that's pretty similar. And it also comes down to, the different perspectives culturally as how people will connect into those different realms. Native Americans have, and shamans have one way that they will connect into entering spirit world, or, channels have a whole other way that they connect in the spirit and how they relate in dreams and how they connect into that vibration. So it's one of those things where the labels are something that sometimes can get a little confusing when we're talking about, especially, when you see books that come out constantly on astral projection, out-of-body experience, lucid dreaming, non-lucid. So it's kind of confusing. We start labeling things in a variety of different ways, I think.
I completely agree. Like, every person has their own personal definition of every single word. Like, when someone says the astral plane or astral projection, one person could have this idea and then the other person has that idea. But fundamentally, like, the concepts themselves are completely, you can't express them in words. Concepts, we can only try to describe something through our own experiences, and truly that's all we have. But I'm really curious to know, Ryan, what some of the practices you do when it comes to astral projection via meditation or as you fall asleep, things like that. I'm curious.
Right. Okay. So most of my astral projection is actually done in meditation. A lot of traditional astral projection is done when you try to lay down and get into sleep paralysis and all of that. But personally, I find it just easier to extend my awareness out of my body while I'm in meditation, and I just lose all sense of my actual physical self, and I guess I just go out and experience the dimensions.
Okay, I want to present a challenge to you, and I know that this is going to be a tough challenge because I know it'd be hard for me to try to describe it as well, but what you described there is not practical. So how can you give a tip to all of our listeners here to how they too can experience something? Because it's really easy to say, oh, I just get into a meditative state and then I'm actually projecting. But right. Try to be more descriptive. How can you help the listeners here?
Okay. Well, the main thing is visualization. So in meditation, we visualize something in our mind. And that can necessarily be anything. Like in certain guided meditations, they'll say, oh, imagine a field, feel the flowers grazing across your feet. Basically, the idea is to visualize inside your mind yourself leaving your body and just exploring. And it's almost as if the world unfolds before you. Have you ever heard of the game Minecraft?
No.
I'm familiar, but I don't think I've played.
Basically, it's a video game where you're like this little character, and you go out and you mine the resources, and the world just sort of unfolds before you as you keep walking. And for me, when you visualize in meditation, more just appears before me. So what I would suggest is essentially, as you're doing all your breathing techniques in meditation and you've come to a relaxing state, start to visualize in your mind where you want to go, and believe in totality that you are actually there, as opposed to it being just an imaginary experience.
think that, and I just posted a link to your page in the chat room, so everyone can go and check out some of Ryan's stuff also. And I think so for some people, even those of you who don't necessarily have, because I mean myself personally, I don't have, and my visualizations can be powerful, but I'm more of a tactile person, and I know for me, when I go into a dream state, one thing that really does help me is, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is getting into that place of the physical meditation. So for me, yoga is a way that I shift energy within my body. I know where my blockages may be going into that space, so I can use the physical body as a mechanism of allowing a deeper connection into some of the more spiritual spaces for myself, and Justin mentioned mantra. So there's a variety of ways that we can use the tactile experience to go a little deeper in that visual realm of going internal and allowing the mind to assist in that space. So you can even combine those aspects, doing the physical, the vocal, and then even some of the more mental practices to allow yourself to gain deeper access to those processes that will allow you to do some of the more lucid or more astral type dreams.
Indeed,
sorry. Okay, I was just going to say, I think Justin would probably have something to add on this. A lot of times people, when they might get into meditation, they might have an experience like within the first couple times, and they'll just be like kind of really like, oh, that was awesome, like I actually like got somewhere. But I don't think you should get like too caught up in stuff when you're first just getting into it. Just sort of like let it happen and then let it go. Just sort of like be like, see it and then just let it go, and then just constantly move on.
Yeah, definitely. I would say through my own personal experiences, the only time that I've ever been successful when I was free from desire of sensation. Most people get caught up in sensation via meditation, and it can be a very big obstacle to reaching the higher states and deeper states of meditation. One has to learn to let go of even the positive sensations. Like, let's say you're meditating and you have an itch on your shoulder. You're not going to itch it because, it'll make your meditation practice harder. You'll lose your focus, right? And just in the same way, when you start to see things or you start to realize that you're in a big open field and, like, how is that possible, people get attached to that and they think this is what all the spiritual teachings are describing. This is it, but it goes so much deeper. And if you can learn how to let go of even those positive sensations, then you'll reach a neutral ground where you're free from desire and you're just there, and it goes beyond words. Like you can't describe some of these experiences, but the best thing I can say is don't become let go of that positive sensation just as you let go of the itch on your shoulder. Let it pass by. All sensations pass by. When
essentially just observe.
Yeah, exactly. Just observe, and like every single sensation, it will come, it will sustain, and it will disappear. Everything happens that way. Even your lifetime, you'll be born, it'll sustain, and you'll disappear. And we have to understand this is a natural cycle, and we have to accept it. And then once we're able to break free from that, or once we're able to accept it, we're able to distance and break free from those types of cycles.
I think you got to keep it simple too. Another thing, just remember, folks, keep it simple. I work in a metaphysical store, and I see folks come in, and there's a desire to tap into this energy and this desire to go into these spatial realities and these dimensions and stuff, and people will buy a bunch of stones, and they buy a bunch of candles, and they buy a bunch of books, and they buy a bunch of CDs. And the whole process is the more you put between yourself and the actual doing the process, the less likely you are to actually be able to go into that space. So just keep it simple. Start, with one little thing and then build from there. There's a lot of really great resources out there, but don't overwhelm yourself with the desire to go that you do too much at one time. So start with something maybe simple like a mantra. Start with something like a visualization. So depending on how you connect into your own sense of spirituality, whatever you're doing. If sound's a thing that you do, you like to sing, sing yourself into that space with a mantra. If you're a powerful visualizer, let that visualization take you deeper into those spaces. And if you like yoga or, balancing on a fitness ball, then do that. Allow yourself to use that to go a little bit deeper into the physical body. So start with something small, and then allow yourself to expand out from there. But don't rush out tonight and buy a bajillion things in the hopes that all those things together. They might do it, but start small and then branch yourself out.
I have a huge tip that may help people. This may be a painful thing to hear for most that aren't very dedicated people, but I would say there's this big giant secret that I wish somebody told me before I started practicing all this stuff, and it's consistency is key. If you practice every day, let's for example, meditation. You want to access really deep states of meditation. If you practice 2 or 3 times a day for 45 minutes every day without breaking consistency, it'll be a natural thing you can do. You can just enter into that meditative state and reach all these deeper states really easily. But
it just becomes a habit.
The key of consistency, no one can give to you. You must create that key yourself. Consistency is the biggest thing that will change your life. But if you don't have consistency, you won't have these experiences. Most people will be like, oh yeah, I tried meditating a few days last week and it didn't work. Maybe astral projection is not for me. I don't know what it is. And that's their problem. They're not consistent.
Right.
That's right. Another thing I'd like.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Another thing I'd like to say for beginner lucid dreamers, probably the best thing to try is the power of suggestion. I don't know if anybody said this already, but if you just tell yourself before you go to bed, I'm going to remember my dream tonight, or I'm going to have a lucid dream tonight, or when I see my hands in my dream, I'm going to know I'm dreaming. Just saying that to yourself, the subconscious mind is very suggestive, just like it is in hypnosis. So that actually brings on those states quite easy.
Right, affirmations are powerful, and affirmations of, I can't, and, consistency is in itself an affirmation. When you're doing something on a consistent basis, if you go to your first yoga class and you feel you can't do anything, you never go back, then of course you can't do it because you've not allowed yourself to have the experience. You haven't allowed yourself to engage the process. So anything like this, even something like this, requires you to engage some consistency and allow yourself to try smaller things out and then build from those smaller things, and then you'll see the progression of your practice versus a regression and a non-allowance of yourself. So, go into a place of expansion and not a place of limitation, but, affirmations are a very powerful way to either limit yourself or to expand yourself in those spaces of learning.
Definitely, I totally agree. Also, I'd like to add, if people that are greatly interested in this subject are curious to know where I'm studying from, or the tradition that I come from, I just pasted a video. I'm just a part of a spiritual community that kind of explores these types of subjects from a scientific, empirical process. Here's this person's theory, let's test it. He says that he wrote his dreams down every day for 2 months, and it led to lucid dreams. So that's, an example, a really poor example, but I just linked a video of one of the lectures that I've filmed. I filmed all the lectures that I go to just because I like to spread them around the net and stuff. So I guess check that video out. Keep seeking. You'll find what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say the link that Justin's putting up, I would also recommend checking that out too. And that's actually part of the Gnosis community, which is a community that is here in London, but I mean there's Gnosis communities all across the world pretty much. And that was actually, for both of us, I think, me and Justin, there was a presentation that was going on at the local library in our city. This would have been back in 2009. And it was put on by this group, the Gnosis, and it was about astral projection and lucid dreaming. And that was, for both of us, I think, where we sort of picked up a lot of the interest, is when someone who knew what they were talking about shared the information with us. And so it's good that we have this type of stuff on video, because, I mean, you don't have to wait for these guys to book the events at your library by any means. Because Justin's taken the time to film this, then you guys can already check it out. And for everyone else, I'm posting another link into the chat, and that's actually it's probably, I mean, I haven't double-checked the one that Justin put up. Justin, does it have Lee in the video? Or is it someone else?
Oh, you linked the Paradigm one?
Yeah, I was linking the first episode of Sight Beyond Sight, which also has Lee, who is the person who did this presentation for us. He's kind of talking about astral projection and lucid dreaming as well in this episode, so I encourage everyone to check that out. And there's 8 other episodes of Sight Beyond Sight, which was a show episode series thing that Justin helped me with back in 2010, when we were doing the meetings at the school for Paradigm Shifts, we were bringing in guests, and basically we were filming the guests and making small episodes out of it. So there's lots more content. In addition to listening to this show, you guys can definitely check out all the other stuff and any other links that might be shared through the live chat in the future.
So we're coming down to the end here, and I really want to thank everyone who has chimed in, tuned in. It's great. I've seen the chat room here grow, from the time that we started the show to now, and just the conversation. It's kind of neat how things will unfold themselves as a process, and I'm going to keep the chat up for a little while after the show so we can still interact via chat, but be sure you're tuning in every week. Every Saturday, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be having the Paradigm Shift radio station. And one last little thing that I want to leave with is, sometimes the process of wanting to do the lucid dreaming and the astral projecting, that's just one method of you getting yourself into that daily practice of doing something. So allow yourself, if you don't have like a daily practice, allow that to be something that kind of calls you. And it's not always the getting to the destination. Remember, sometimes the road itself is the destination. And allow yourself to engage and to try out some of this new stuff. If you haven't tried some of this stuff in a while, try it out. Get out there, experience, all that's, spirituality, spirit, and your path has to offer. So I want to thank, Justin and Ryan for coming on tonight and sharing their experiences. I posted a link to Ryan's stuff in the chat room, so go ahead and check out Spirit Science. I mean, there's a lot of really great information there. Forums, just interactive. This whole interaction in community is beautiful, and it's a great place to have, some of these, more, dialogues with people. So I want to thank you all for coming on tonight and being part of the show with us.
No problem, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And by all means, feel free to join in when we are doing the shows. I think you guys have a lot to share, and obviously we're not going to be able to get it all in within the first couple hours. But, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're not trying to do that, because we probably could just sit here for another 8 hours going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But let's draw it out over a few weeks and see where we progress as a community, and get some other people in here sharing their experiences. And if you have any tips for us and our fellow listeners and anyone else in the community, tips on how to assist in the evolution of consciousness, whether it be within your own community or within your own personal life, then please, we want to share those. And I was just going to say, for anyone who hasn't checked out the ParadigmShiftLondon.com website, feel free to do that, and that will link you to the Facebook page for Paradigm Shift London, and it's there that you'll see some of the latest activity that's being posted through Paradigm Shift London, including any videos. But I think that's our cue to wrap things up, so we'll see you guys in the future, I'm sure. And Michael, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, we're down to the last minute and 90 seconds here. Folks, we want to thank you all for tuning in tonight to Paradigm Shift Radio. You can, of course, find more about us just by clicking the follow button, and you'll stay updated on all the shows. We have a variety of shows that come on this channel. The next one will be, I believe, Monday night is the next scheduled show. It's myself and David Salisbury for The Psychic and the Witch. He's out of town, so I'm going to have someone else do a guest host with me. Tuesday, myself and the fabulous Miss Ronnie will be on doing Keeping It Real. So then we'll take your baby mama questions on Tuesday nights. And then you'll find myself. And, next Friday I have a wonderful psychic medium, Aaron Naughton, who will be on the show, the young medium from England, who will be on. We'll be doing readings and all kinds of things. Come on each and every single week. We have lots of stuff happening here on the channel. Connect in, be part of the experience, be part of the shift. Go out, create those experiences in your community. ParadigmShiftLondon.com, ParadigmShiftDC.com for more information on things that are happening in our areas. And we'll post links to the other groups as we get them. So thanks again. Thanks, Skull, for being on.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. And remember, take what we said and put it into practical use tonight. Actually do something, and then that's where the progress is going to happen. Don't just listen to us. Start putting it into action. So,
be part of the experience. Thank you all. See you next time.